Welcome everyone, you are now crafting with the nuts. Today we're going to be working on a project you can make and give to your kids to decorate. We will be using a file I made a few years ago for cutting on a laser engraver. Since I'll be making this on the Cricut, out of basswood, we will be using the deep cut blade. When it uses this blade, it has to decide when to lift up and reposition, so long smooth cuts are preferable, but naturally not always practical. Look at the leaves on this flower for instance. The tightest curve the deep cut blade will cut is a 1/4 inch diameter, and as you can see the top inside of these leaves is much too tight. If I wanted to keep a continuous curve, I would have to adjust the line to match the curve of this circle here. I don't really like the way that would look, so my other option is to bring it to a hard corner. This will cause the blade to stop, lift, reposition, and drop to continue cutting. This will slow down the cut, but I think it will look nice in the end. Here I have a leftover flower I made with the laser engraver a while back. In order to make it stand up, you need to cut out interlocking feet. For this I made a semicircle for both the base of the standee and the foot. I cut a notch into the top of the foot and the bottom of the standee exactly as wide as the thickness of the material. The depth of the notch should be half the height of the foot in both pieces, so they slide together and both parts can rest on the table. If you make these correctly, they should fit very snugly. If they are a little hard to put together, you can always sand the edge down a little bit. Since I'm modifying an existing drawing, I'm first matching the size of the existing notch, then adjusting it to my new material. I will be using 3/32 basswood and cutting 2 identical pieces out to glue them together, which increases the overall thickness to 3/16 of an inch. Moving over to the Cricut Design Space, I import the SVG file. It defaults to cut for all the lines. I need to change the operation on the inside details from basic cut to pen. I also changed the color of the outline to a more wood-colored choice for visibility. Once I click Make It, I change the number of copies to 2, since I will be doubling up the final piece. Holding down the Shift key as you rotate will lock the rotation to 90-degree turns. Well, that's all well and good, but what if I want to make standee from one of your other files? One that isn't already set up, I hear you asking. Let's work on Snoopy then. Last week I made this SVG. First we need some space around it. So here I am taking the basic black layer, which is already an outline for the entire thing, and adding a very thick stroke. We'll outline that stroke and merge the result with a copy of the black outline. This will be our new cut line. However, you can see it's much too detailed right now for the Cricut. It has too many small radii and tight corners, which will slow down the cut considerably and maybe not make it cut out very well. Here I take the open selection tool and grab the anchors I don't want and remove them. Using the curvature tool, I adjust the remaining line so I get a nice smooth curve. There are a number of areas that could use improvement. I'm satisfied with the outline, I just give it a wood-like color for clarity. If you recall from last week, the bottom of the doghouse and the grass overlap with the background black. So I spend the next few minutes removing as much of that overlap as I can to speed up the Cricut pen time and save ink. This isn't entirely necessary, but it's a good habit to get into. After converting the colored areas to lines and making them all black, it's time to work on some feet. The overall standee height I've decided on is 5.5 inches, so the feet need to be tall enough to hold it, but not so big as to cover up too much of the drawing. I decided on 1 inch tall and 1.5 inch wide feet for this. I didn't like the idea of just square feet, so I choose to give them a slanted edge. Again, I make the notch 3/16 of an inch wide, as the standee will be two 3/32 deep pieces of basswood glued together. For stability, I decided 2 feet were better, so I duplicate what I made and arrange them to where I think they would best interact with the standee. With a copy of the notch still on the clipboard, I paste it back in and arrange it in line with my feet location now. Then I just arrange the feet in a convenient area to reduce the amount of material I use when I cut. This is what the Cricut is going to make. Once again, back into Design Space. Convert the internal details to pen and click Make It. I only cut one at a time this time, since the cut is more complex and I wanted to make sure it worked before using too much material. With the pen lines already done, here is what the machine looks like cutting, at 4 times speed. After it runs through the cut program, it may not have cut all the way through. Using a knife or a weeding tool, see if you can lift the edge. If not, press the Cricut button again and it will cut again. Repeat until you think it's cut through enough and without cutting too deep into your map. Here are the final cut pieces. You will see the feet ended up being a little too fragile and broke when I was taking them out. 2 broke and 2 didn't, so gluing them together won't be a problem. You might want to run over the edges with a knife or some sandpaper if they aren't as smooth as you would like. I did a little work on them off screen. The best way to glue them together is by holding them down with some painter's tape. Make a hinge out of the tape, glue the pieces, and secure with more tape. Small and large pieces will work the same way. A nice large book and some weight on top will ensure the glue dries flat. Make sure to use some scrap paper to protect your book. After an hour of dry time, you can see the results. Clean up any extra glue and you're ready to color. Here I'm using some permanent markers to color Snoopy in. I'm not really happy with how the basswood bled along the grain, but using acrylic paint and paintbrushes instead will have better results. With the fire flower, I also used permanent markers, but this time I first sprayed it with a very thin coat of white primer. That prevented the bleed we got with Snoopy. Well, thanks for watching. As always, I'll put these files up exclusively for my patrons at patreon.com/thenuts.